if I relied on Des being the sole source of my happiness,
You'd be miserable.
Yeah.
We would have broke up a long time ago. Welcome to the Golden Queers. I'm Des.
And I'm Johnny.
And today we're going to be talking about 18 or more or less things that we've learned in the 18 years we've been together. So Saturday was what?
It was our anniversary.
It was our anniversary of making a commitment to each other. On July 25th, we made an actual commitment to the type of relationship we wanted to have. And here we are 18 years later.
In that commitment, we said no promises and no forever.
But that we were committed to the relationship and making it work however it works. When we made the commitment, we both agreed that we weren't going to get married, marriage is a heterosexual, patriarchal structure, and it's not who we are. As we got older, having legal protections for our relationship became important. So when it became legal to do so, we got married, but we don't think of ourselves as a marriage. We think of ourselves as this relationship that's been 18 years, not the relationship that started when we got the piece of paper once it was legal for people like us to get married.
Today we each compiled a list of we could say things we learned, observances, self-growth that has happened within this committed relationship. The structure of this video is we're going to read our statements and talk about it. We're going to look for the crossovers and maybe like we have the same thing and we'll cross that out. So here we go. Things that I've learned in an 18-year relationship. Number one is communication, communication, communication. Because it is the most important relationship tool.
That seems fair.
Fair?
I mean, I've seen all sorts of studies and data where they followed people who were married, of course, because that's what they define as a relationship in this society. But they've even done some with people who are cohabitating, and communication is like the most important thing. I put numbers on them just so I know how many they are, but I'm not sure that these are ranked by what's the most important. What I have first is that active commitment is more important than 1,000 promises. We didn't say, I promise that I will do this, or that until death do us part, or any sort of, I will always be this for you and I will always be that for you. We didn't say anything like that other than we are committed to this relationship, to the structure that we set when we got together, but we also said that if that changes, we will change, because the relationship is what matters. There have been little changes over time. Our financial situation, our living situation, our jobs, our families. We've gone through all sorts of physical health and mental health changes in 18 years. But because we are committed to the relationship and to supporting each other, the let's see how long this will last has lasted 18 years.
On my list, because I had not known this throughout my life, and maybe I did and I overlooked it, but unconditional love. Unconditional love was something that my experience was so minimal. I always had obsessed-based relationships. It's all about the sex and the fun, and instead of the real love, the deep love. And I think that came out of that active commitment and open communication lines.
I understood about unconditional love before we got together.
And that's what you taught me.
And that's what I taught you.
And when I found out that this was like way deep inside and that it wasn't going anywhere, I freaked out, and then I settled in and said, okay, that's what it is. I'm going to try to understand it and learn to feel it. Last year was when I really started to feel it. So every day I strive to have unconditional love. That's really hard, but I strive for it.
One of the important things for me that I've learned is that home is not a singular place. My home is not my house. My home is not the place where I was born. My home is wherever we happen to be based at a given time. We have homes that are where we're not. So I think of New Mexico as home, even though we're living in Kansas right now. And I also think of Arizona as home because part of my heart is there. We've lived there, we have friends there, we know those places.
I grew up there.
You grew up in Phoenix, but you didn't grow up in New Mexico.
No.
But I think of them both as home almost as much as I think of the place where we live together as home. Home isn't just one place, and it can move with you, and it can be multiple places at once, and I didn't have a concept of that before this relationship.
Well, if you're going to be nomadic, you know.
Yes, if you're going to be nomadic. Did you have anything on your list that was like commitment or home?
No, I didn't put home or commitment.
Okay.
Here's something that I learned, and I may combine the three of these. So I'll read all three of them and see what you
And count
think.
them as one?
Yeah, we'll see. Do you want to respond to each one or just have me read them?
Well, read them all first and see if they are interrelated.
The first one is arguments and fights are just part of the relationship, not the end of it. Staying put guarantees my growth. And growing pains can be good. Whether we want to admit it or not, we all change. Share it with your partner. They are your strongest ally.
Well, I think the change one is separate.
Okay.
But I think those first two have to do with arguments and actually sitting with the argument and getting through to the other side of it. I have one that is you can argue without fighting, which was a very important thing. But actually, we practiced that pretty much from the beginning. How you handle arguments is very important in any relationship. But obviously, if you're going to last 18 years, you learn a lot about how to argue.
Let's just say this. When we got together, I was a very combative human being. And I was coming out of a situation living with my own family of origin. And I was very stressed. I had some PTSD over that. And when we got together, it was shelter. It was safe shelter for me for a while until I could learn to shelter myself.
What mine meant about arguing without fighting, we were doing it all along, but I only recently figured out what the difference actually is. Fighting usually involves insulting the other person, like verbally calling them names or saying they're dumb or anything, personally attacking them. Instead of just saying what you did was bad and this is how I feel about what you did and you made me cry because of what you did, or I'm so mad because of what you did. It's the action and the relationship that happens because of it. It's not you are a sucky person because you did that to me. And we've never called each other names, or
once.
Maybe once.
There was one time
Early
we got I don't know, I think it was about the middle.
I don't
We got
remember.
into some huge fight and bad words came out, and
Yeah, and I don't even remember that
Yeah.
because it was so rare if it only happened once in 18 years. And the other thing that I consider part of fighting besides the personal attacks or insults is if you get really aggressive. There have been a couple of times where we've bordered on fighting, but we've always been able to bring it back to what is the problem that we're trying to work through.
Yeah.
That we're trying to communicate, like you said. I mean, if we're fighting, it's because one of us is hurt or angry or in some way upset, and we have to be able to communicate what caused it and how do we get through the other side of it. Even if we're yelling or crying or throwing things to the side or punching pillows, we still have to communicate.
And we've done that. We've done it with them. I get fighty, they get cryy. We've actually been able to go through fights with them crying and me being very assertive, aggressive, but we got through it to the other side, and that's what's important about it.
So what was the
Growing pains can be good, whether we want to admit it or not. We all change. Share it with your partner if you're going through some growth. They can be your strongest ally. I know I have done some incredible growing in this relationship, as we just talked about, learning to stay put through the arguing, learning about unconditional love and spirituality too. We've pushed each other to grow in those ways, and it's been that just fills my whole being, which is my spirit, my mind, my body. I was a spiritual person when I came into this relationship, and so was Des, and then we just started growing and growing and growing, and staying put through the growing pains to see what comes out the other side. And sometimes the arguments can be about those growing pains.
Yeah.
Even though we don't know it. After we come out of those, it's like, oh wow, I just learned that.
Well, and close to that, adaptability is vital to relationship. So part of that is being able to adapt when your partner's growing, or when you're growing. You have to adapt how you are in the relationship based on your own growth. You have to adapt how you relate to the other person based on their growth. But I prefer to think of it, I don't like the word compromise. We're adapting to new situations. We're adapting and coming to agreements. I had to adapt to what it was like to have somebody who would rather sleep in when I want to get up early. You know, you have to adapt.
Oh, yeah.
I have to adapt to somebody who likes a lot of the same things I do, but also likes stuff I don't like. And I'm like, no, watch that when I'm not around.
Right.
You have to be able to adapt to new habits, interactions, foods, entertainment, family, work situations. And over the course of, oh my God, you're going to get a job in Santa Fe. I guess we're moving to Santa Fe, and I have to adapt to that. Oh my God, you have a lizard? I now have to live with a lizard?
It was an iguana, and he was really cute.
And I loved him, and I miss him very much. But at the beginning, it was, you're bringing a lizard into my house? And now I have to learn how to live with a lizard?
Yeah. Introverts and extroverts.
So you learned about us?
I am an extrovert. I love going out. I love to dance. I was going out to regular poetry at that time because poetry fills my life. And just like Saturday, I was sitting through like a zine thing and a poetry thing, and there was one more poetry thing I could have gone to. And Des, even though they do like poetry, doesn't have the patience to sit through some of the stuff. They finally started admitting they were an introvert like at about year 4, I think. Year 4 or 5. And the night before our wedding vows, we had 2 friends there standing with us, and
we were all staying in an Airbnb together
Yeah.
for the weekend.
And one had headphones on, the other, and both of them were on their computer. Des was on their computer. We're watching something on TV, on video, and I'm like, you guys, come on, let's interact.
And we were all, the rest of us were introverts, and we're just happy to be in the same room, but we didn't have to interact.
And I'm like, come on, let's interact. And they were like, why? Introverts are weird.
So early on, it's not like I became an introvert or he became an extrovert. We always were these things. We just got better language to talk to each other and a better understanding of what the other person was and needed. And it's like, you go do your extroverted thing. Don't you want to come with me?
Come with me.
No. Go and leave me alone in the house by myself for a couple of hours because I need that.
But you're alone. Don't you want to be with people?
No, I don't. So this is a pandemic. And this is lockdown.
Oh
and
my
this
God.
is, for reals, Johnny couldn't leave the house because he's at more risk than I am. I still have a job. I have to go to work. I have to shop for us. He can't leave the house literally for pretty much 3 months until he started going to see doctors again.
Yeah. I was like from the end of March to
June.
Near the end of June, I was in the house all the time. Now I was allowed to go outside and take a walk. So when I started walking, that really helped. I watched a lot of TV.
Everybody keeps posting on social media every now and then, what are you going to do first when this is all over? What are you going to do first when this is all over? What I'm going to do first is kick him out of the house for a whole day so that I can have the house absolutely to myself with no one in it for a whole
I just got an answer for that.
whole day.
I'll go to our cousin's house for 2 days. If you're an extrovert, learn from introverts. It helps.
My next thing that I learned is that you have to honor your partner's nature and not try to change them or remake them. Like, you can encourage them to have better habits. You can even like help them have better habits, but basically they're going to be who they are. And this whole idea that some people have of, oh, this person has a lot of problems, but I'll fix them once I get married, or once we're living together, I can change their behavior. I don't get that. I didn't get it before, but after 18 years, I really get that this is the same person that he was.
At the very core of our beings, we are
who we
are when we came into this relationship. We have grown and changed.
Yeah, I mean, now we're both vegans and you're going to be more gluten-free like I am. We've both gone through a journey with our gender identity in the time we've been together.
Yeah, that's been huge.
That's been a huge thing, but we didn't do that because the other person forced us to.
No.
We didn't change into some ideal of what the other person wanted. We just grew together and had to respect the other person's journey and help them on it.
We knew we liked each other for a while, and then when we finally actually got into the same space and started dating, it was like, oh my God.
It was like, oh my God, you know that too? Oh my God, you want to do that too? That's your dream? That's my dream.
And the spirituality, oh my God, you believe that? Oh my God, I believe that too. You know, and that, for me, out of all the things that we had that was in common, was that, and this is one of my things, was that.
What is it? We'll look at it.
Yeah.
Go on to the next thing if it leads
Okay,
into it. Do you need to mark off the ones you've already said so that you can find your way? Something about not remaking people or respecting.
Let the spouse do their own growing. Intruding can disrupt the process.
Yeah.
So that's what you're talking about. Oh, this is a good one.
Let your spouse do their own growing.
Yeah. What, I mean, basically hands off, right? Des was going through such a hard time when we were in Santa Fe, and then when we came back, and it was so hard. It was so hard. And I did the hands off thing, and
yeah, because sometimes it has to be hands off, and other times you could be more supportive, and other times you can be right there with them. But you've got to respect where they are and what's their nature, their growth cycles, etc.
And like both being non-binary and going through our gender changes. I mean, I was sitting there on the couch and I had the computer and I looked over at Des and I said, okay, I'm going to start changing this. I'm going to put genderqueer and queer and he, him on my pronouns. And I did that and they were right there supporting me. So that was really huge when I did that.
I learned that it's okay to not like something that Johnny makes.
Yeah.
Which is really important because he's a professional cook. He's a chef. He makes all these amazing things. And the first few times that he made something that I didn't like, I was afraid to say, I don't like this, because his ego is so attached to what he makes. His identity, in a way, is I make food for you to show you that I love you, and you don't like it? How can you not like it?
Yeah, it kind of breaks my heart a little bit.
It could be a poem that he wrote, or it could be a blog post that I wrote, or whatever. It's okay to not like, I really think you'll like this movie, and then you watch it and he doesn't like the movie, and I'm like, but I thought you would like this movie.
Like, I didn't really. Yeah, okay. Oh, I had it's okay to do things apart.
That's related but not exactly the same. Yeah, it's okay to not like something that the other person does.
Yeah, if I stay in this relationship, I'll grow. So that's all that staying put stuff. If I stay right here through all the fighting and all the fun too, we have a lot of fun.
Oh God, yeah. You learn that if you stay in the relationship, you'll grow.
Yeah.
Which has to do with staying put for a different reason. You stay put through the arguments, but that's a form of growth too.
Yeah.
And if you stay put through the other person's evolution, then you grow.
Right. Like I didn't run away when you were really depressed. And Des and I, we feed off of each other and we help each other, and we have done a lot of growing together. And I really appreciated that.
I learned how to pick my battles. This is something I think anybody in any kind of relationship learns. You have to learn, okay, I could complain about that, or I could save that energy for something later on. And it goes along with the, is this going to matter in 10 minutes? Is this going to matter in 10 years? Is this something I can live with? Do I just smile and, okay.
Is it grin and bear it, or is it accepting and moving on?
In the moment, the accepting and moving on can feel like I'm just going to get my teeth through this. And then later it's like, okay, didn't really matter anyway, because in the grand scheme of things, 18 years, we're going to fight over that little thing. You're picking your battles because it's insignificant, or you're picking your battles because that's just who they are and you're not going to change them, so why fight about it?
Yeah. This one line I had is, we made it, this is just something I learned. We made it past 5 years. I didn't think I'd get that far in a relationship ever. We made it past 10 years. Oh my God. I remember when it was 7 years.
It was 7.
7 years is common law marriage, or was, and I was just like, oh my God, it's 7 years now I'm married. And and that was in Santa Fe. I had a really hard time with that one. And then 15 years, we made it. And then, oh my God, we're clocking 18. That's 2 years from 20 years together.
Well, our relationship can now vote. You've learned that 5 years is possible. You've learned that long-term is possible.
I learned that long-term relationships are possible for me.
I learned that validation isn't necessary, but it's really, really, really helpful.
I like validation.
Yes, Johnny likes validation. I had grown up in a situation where myself was validated, in that they loved me and they supported me, but they did not necessarily understand, and they couldn't say, oh yeah, I get that. And so I learned to go through life without other people understanding and validating my experience. But over the years, it's like, oh, it's nice to have somebody who could say, I get what you're saying, and yes, what you're saying is valid, and yes,
I was
going to
ask you that, if the validation thing was really effective.
I don't know about effective.
Helpful. You said helpful, right?
I said helpful.
Okay.
I wasn't used to validating other people, let alone being validated to that degree, so I've definitely learned that there's value in validation.
I like that. Value in validation. That's great. There's this thing that we started saying at some point in our relationship. We came up with this line, and I think you came up with it. Separation is illusion.
Yeah.
When we are doing our own thing, it can be hard without you. A couple of times when we were living in Arizona, that Des flew out here to Kansas to be with their sister and their mom. And I was alone. And I was like, what's this about? And sometimes when I'd go to work and I didn't want to go to work, I wanted to stay home and be with them. And they're like, no, go, separation is an illusion. And they put their hand on my heart, like right there, and tell me it's okay, it's just an illusion, you'll be back soon.
Separation is an illusion is what I came to understand as we are connected energetically, spiritually. That's how we came to be in this relationship in the first place, is recognizing that connection. No matter where we are, that connection is still there, which is why even if we're physically in different rooms, different cities, different states, we're still connected. We are not the same person, however much we have in common.
No, we aren't.
Because there are so many things that we have in common. And at sometimes it can feel like we're practically the same person, because we will respond to some things exactly the same way. There are things he likes that I don't like. There are things I like that he doesn't like.
Introvert.
We're both non-binary, but I'm more of an agender person and he's a transmasculine person. He's a he, I'm a they. Yeah. We had similar backgrounds, but different. We are not the same person. Therefore, the corollary of that was that over time, as I know more about him and what we do have in common, I can anticipate more and more what his responses are going to be or what he might like or not like, but I will never be able to read his mind.
Yeah, we're not mind readers. We established that early on,
We
too.
established that early on. Over time, the more I know you and the more that we have in common, the more you can fall into the trap of thinking you're going to respond to things the way I would.
Yeah.
And you're not.
Yeah,
Because you're your own person.
We aren't the same person. We may be energetically connected. That does not mean that we are twins.
And we may have very similar backgrounds and we have very similar likes and preferences to things, but we are still not the same person, and I have to remind myself of that sometimes when I expect him to respond a certain way and then he doesn't. Well, no, that's because he's not me.
I'm going to do this one because the other ones are really similar. It is great to have a traveling companion, and one that I actually like. We travel really, really well together. It's just, we have so much fun on road trips. It's so much fun.
Yeah, that's true.
There
Before that, you used to travel by yourself.
Yeah, I did a lot of traveling alone. There was that one time when we were driving through New Mexico and you wanted this song and I had the computer open. Oh, I opened the computer to look up the song.
No, you looked at the phone.
No.
No, are you talking about the when I wanted to find a cover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a cover of one of the Beatles songs.
Yeah, I'm like, there has to be a heavy metal cover of a Beatles song somewhere. And so he used Google and found a YouTube video and played it for me.
Because I'm good like that. What do you like about traveling with me, besides that?
It's really not much different than being here
Together.
with you. It's just different scenery.
We're on wheels and
We both love to travel, so traveling with somebody who loves to travel is important. I learned that date night isn't necessary. I really just hate the whole idea of date night, but I know that some people need that. But having shared activities and shared time is important. So back when we were both working separate jobs at separate places, if anything, let's watch our favorite show when the new episode comes out. Let's put a jigsaw puzzle together where we can spend half an hour working on the puzzle and then set it aside, and then the next day we can work on it again. Having shared activities like making YouTube videos.
Oh man, you picked that one up.
is important because it keeps you connected. It gives you that quality time that is so important to relationships.
You are not the sole source of my happiness.
Thank you. I don't want to be.
If I relied on Des being the sole source of my happiness,
You'd be miserable.
We
would have broke up a long time
we
ago.
talked about it. We have outside activities. I do poetry. I do storytelling. I like the wilderness. I like going out into nature. Des likes to look at nature and wants a house around them when they do it. So the rest of it, I said, happiness outside of the relationship is good. I have certain activities or things I like doing that you don't. And you and I let each other have that space.
In prior relationships, you were still looking to your partner to make you happy.
Yeah, sex made me happy. My happiness was tied up in physicality. It really was. Movement and dancing and movement.
And bicycling. And
Bicycling, I used to bicycle a lot.
I learned making each other laugh is very, very important to the longevity of a relationship. This is to the point where sometimes we'll go to bed and I'm like, we haven't had a giggle fest in a long time. We need to try to make each other laugh.
And sometimes it's like, no, how about that? No. Oh, that is funny. There are certain words that they say
in a certain way
that make me laugh. It's very important.
Seriously, if we go a long time without having a, oh my God, I can't stop laughing giggle fest, then it usually says there's something going on with either of us that's upsetting, or we need to reaffirm our relationship by having this
thing happen.
all out laughter where we're literally laying in bed, clutching our stomachs, crying with tears.
I think I clocked our longest giggle fest was about 2 hours. It was really insane. We just could not. It was 2 hours.
Being able to laugh together regularly honestly, not like fake laughter.
It's like
is
from the
important.
soul laughter.
It's important. And this is what I learned. I knew intellectually that people developed inside jokes and their own language, but now I know it because I've done it. And there are certain things that we say that are our words for things, and there are certain jokes that we have that other people wouldn't get. And I can look at him and start to say something.
And I'll just start laughing.
Like femme.
That's a good one. That one hasn't made me laugh before.
No, but you know what was coming after that.
Huh?
Because I was going to say feminine. I won't say the rest.
That was funny.
Because
As a queer couple, and I mean queer couple, we have discovered things about ourselves, and when we express them, have genuine acceptance of the point of view. And when we express them, having genuine acceptance of point of view feels good. As a queer person, to have another queer person in my life, and I think I smelled out the queerness way like off the bat. They were still coming into they were still coming into it and owning it. Not that I made you change, but you stopped wearing dresses after a while, skirts. You had the greatest skirts, and then you stopped wearing them.
yes, I evolved my gender expression
Yes,
over time.
yes.
But you can't say that I wasn't queer when we got together, because by definition we were a same-sex marriage, or
Right.
a same-sex relationship.
Right. Couple.
And we were both identified as being pansexual or bisexual, and being polyamorous,
Yeah.
and being a little more than a little kinky, so we were not straight in any way.
No. So we are very queer.
We are very queer. That's just a given.
Yeah. We may not have rainbows floating around the house, but believe me, they're in my heart.
Our queerness has evolved, and certainly we've both gone through gender evolution in the time we've been together.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a validation of, oh, I look and you see me,
Mm-hmm.
and that validates my non-binariness, or my demisexuality, or your transmasculine. And if we had been straight or straight-laced or whatever, then maybe you would have had more fear in coming to me with those things.
Well, your overall being that is full of acceptance and and unconditional love made it safe for me to tell you things that I may have otherwise withheld for a longer time.
That makes sense. I have one last thing. Basically, what I learned is that tropes about marriage and partnerships don't matter at all. Some of the examples of common tropes or cliches or myths that I wrote down was, you can go to bed mad, even happy couples argue, you don't have to like the same things, you don't have to spend all your time together.
We do.
But there's a whole thing that there's a trope out there that if you want to spend time away from your spouse, if you want to go out with your friends, or if you want to go to whatever without them, oh my gosh, you must not really love them if you want to do something without them.
I felt that for like the first couple of years, that you not going to the things with me made me sad. I was like, but you're supposed to do the things with me. But I learned to accept that that it was okay to go out by myself, because I had been programmed that you do things with your spouse.
You do things with your spouse. You don't have to divide chores equally. Another thing, queer thing, is neither one of us has to be the man in any way, shape, or form.
And not one of us has to be the girl.
We don't have to be monogamous to be happy or to be in a relationship. You can just go down all those cliches that everybody says, well, they're cliche because they're true. Well, they might be true for some people, but they're not true for everybody.
The cliches have been reinforced by the way our rom-coms and romance novels were written, and people read them, and we're taught maybe through our religion this is the way we're supposed to be. So we've broken all those rules.
Yeah, the whole idea of tropes or traditional structures or whatever, the idea that you can't be happy if you don't do this, is all bullshit.
Yeah, and how how we've developed our relationship over time has just taken a lot of patience and a lot of talking and a lot of like emotional feeling of things with each other.
One of the things that neither of us put that I think we both have learned a lot about is expectations and when to have them and when not to have them and when to let go of them and how not to hold the other person to your expectations. And I don't know how we both missed that.
Yeah, that's a big one. I was taught to expect.
Well,
right?
Society
have expectations, you know, and so early on we were like, oh, Des said it, we have no expectations of each other. And I'm like, what do you mean about that? And then I started having them and they're like, no, not that. I'm like, oh, that's what you meant. Oh, okay. So I had to re-examine how I thought about interacting with someone else without expectations.
There are some expectations that are reasonable, and learning what's reasonable and what you actually need to hold the other person accountable for versus what's your own baggage.
Yeah.
Whether it's internalized or you get it from watching too many rom-coms. Oh, also internalized expectations. I may have taught you about we're not going to have expectations in a relationship, but I have all sorts of expectations for myself that I've internalized based on society and culture and the patriarchy and capitalism, and I've had to work through those. That's part of my personal growth that made me more aware of when I was setting unconscious expectations for the relationship or for Johnny's personal growth.
Yeah.
So yeah, expectations was a pretty big thing. I think it comes down to commitment, respecting each other's growth, and laughing together.
And this, my cousin taught me this because her and her husband are best friends. Being best friends, you know, be good friends at least.
Yeah. Yes, we are each other's friend. In addition to loving each other, we like each other a lot.
Yeah.
And we like each other's company. And we're willing to work on the relationship in all these other, a lot of these things that we've learned are, we've been working on the relationship and we work on the relationship. But we laugh along the way, so it's not all hard work.
Yeah.
Even the hard work can be fun.
Growing pains can be pleasant. So
Yeah,
that
I think
goes.
you said that.
Yeah, growing pains can be pleasant. So we can have these changes and these evolutions and still have a good time.
We're obviously a queer couple. This is the Golden Queers channel. Realistically, these things could have been learned in a heterosexual relationship.
Yeah.
As queers, we have a lot to say to heterosexual relationships, not just to queer ones.
Yes.
Because I think all relationships could benefit from the things that we've learned in our 18 years.
So will you please do us a favor and subscribe to this channel. It's real easy to do. And then also there's a little bell for notifications, and if you hit that, YouTube will tell you when we posted a new video.
And definitely put in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of the things. Like, if in your own relationships you've experienced something different, or if we missed something that maybe should have been blatantly obvious that people learn in a relationship. 18 years is a long time to try to narrow down what you've learned.
Well, this is what my list looks like, and Des is going to show theirs. So
And that's mine.
scoot it over just a little bit.
Just a little bit?
There we go.
Okay.
I don't know here. There we go. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.